thank you so much for coming out to Oblong Books this evening. My name is John. I'll be your maitre d' this evening. Please take a moment to silence all of your cell phones. We've got a very special event coming up for you. In the event of an emergency, we've got our exits located there and there. In the event of a different kind of emergency, our restroom is located right over here. We have a very full event schedule this summer. We've got tons of great stuff coming up. Next week, we've got another 2 fabulous events coming up on Tuesday, July 22nd, back here at 6 p.m. We've got Megan C. Reynolds with her book, Like, which is the history of, like, you know, like, the most controversial and, like, often, like, hated word. Very much looking forward to that one. And then 2 days later, Thursday, 1 week from today, Thursday 24th, we've got Betty Chamay here with Upstate Film and her book, Too Soon. That's another going to be absolutely smashing event. Those are free. They're here at 6 p.m. If you're excited to come on down whenever you like. Just send us an RSVP so that way we've got enough chairs to set out there. Otherwise, I think that's enough hemming and hawing. This evening we have the lovely, the wonderful, and the esteemed Miss Carol Goodman. She requires no introduction, but I'm going to give one anyway. She has had a rich and prolific career, won awards for her books, The Widow's House and The Night Visitor. When I think of the Upstate author, I think of Miss Carol Goodman. Please join me in welcoming her tonight.
Author. I'm going to get a T-shirt that says that. I know some people who might debate that or fight me for it. So we won't let that get around too much. Thank you all for coming. This has become my most favorite author tradition to have my launch every year at Oblong Books, my favorite indie in the world, and practically the reason, one of the reasons I ended up moving up here, because they invited me up so often. I finally was just like, okay, I'm gonna come live here, and I just love the Hudson Valley. My husband and I have been here now for almost 15 years, right? And around this time, we moved around September, right? So almost 15 years. And if you've read any of my books, you know I've often set my books in the Hudson Valley. Many of them are set there. For this book, though, I have gone afield. I've gone astray from the Hudson Valley, which I do occasionally. I always come back, and I'll be coming back for not next year's book, but the book after that. The book I'm starting to write now will be another Hudson Valley. So I'm never far from it. This book, though, is set in Greece, which we didn't necessarily know from the title. It's Writers and Liars. You would know that it has to do with writers. Somebody posted on, when I first announced the title, someone posted, is that redundant? I immediately erased the remark from my Facebook page. I thought it's a little bit too tart. I will explain many times that I actually really, writers, I love writers. I've got some writers in the audience. My husband's a poet. And the writers in this book who end up going to a Greek island to a writer's retreat are not representative of the writers I know. I could write about all the lovely writers I know and how well we get along with each other and, you know, how much fun it is to be with them, but it would not be a murder mystery. So having to kill off a few people, I have to create a little bit more drama. So as I said, this is set in Greece, and one of the reasons that I decided to set a book in Greece is because my husband, who is a poet, goes very often to Greece and has had a special relationship with Greece for the last, it's going to be over 10 years from now, correct, where his poetry has been published in Greece, and we've made a number of trips to Greece. So Greece is very dear to my heart, and it has really also been since I was in college. I was a Latin major, but also, you know, classics major. And I love classics, I love mythology, and I thought, well, why not set a book on a Greek island? And so inspired by, also in part by our trips to Greece. So once I thought that, I thought, well, you know, a Greek island, it's also the home, Greece is also the home of the muses, the home of inspiration. So the book ended up growing around that idea. And aside from, you know, just being in a great location, which gave us, even more of we didn't even need an excuse to go to Greece, so I can't even claim it was just for research. There were just a lot of things that fell into place for setting a book in Greece. So I figured nice to give to my readers a little vacation as well. So what I thought I would do is read a little bit from the beginning of the book, pause and say a little bit more about what's going on, and then read a tiny bit more, and then ask for questions, because I'm always really happy to talk about anything. Really anything. I have pretty much no shame. Okay, so this starts with my narrator receiving an invitation. My narrator, Maya. I don't see my friend Nina here. I asked her permission. Her daughter's name is Maya, and when I decided to name this character Maya, I asked her if that was okay. Even more than that, I ended up naming the character Maya Gold, and that is her pseudonym. She wrote children's books under that, so it was, it was okay. Here, we've got seats here, there are seats there. Come on in, make yourself comfortable. So my character Maya, who works at a college as head of a small museum of antiquities. We'll find out that she sort of inherited this job from her father, who was a classics professor. And it starts with an invitation, which, there's Nina. I was just talking about Maya and Maya Gold. Not your daughter or your pseudonym, but I mentioned it that I got your permission to use that as the narrator's name. So don't take that back. Way to embarrass Nina as she comes in. So I'm just starting to read where my character Maya is about to get an invitation. And I like the idea of starting with, because a book really is kind of, the opening pages are an invitation. So I hope it invites you into the world as well. The envelope lands with a thud on my desk, along with the rest of the day's mail. Oh my God, my work study assistant Jenner gasps. Is that an invitation from Arcos Alexander? I glance at the heavy cream-colored envelope. My name is handwritten in calligraphy across the front, and there's a Greek postage stamp with an image of a marble goddess in the right-hand corner, but there's no return address. I turn it over, my fingers lingering on the heavy, expensive paper, which feels like the pelt of a pampered animal. Looking back up at me is an eye, blue as the Aegean, the Mati. And I wore it's another name for people call them the evil eye, but it's to ward off the evil eye. So I wore my Mati earrings. A charm to ward off jealousy. Beware, it warns, of envy. But I'm long past envy. I stepped out of the chase years ago. It's just like the one Annika Greer posted on TikTok, Jenner squeals. I look up at Jenner and see she's already got her phone out and is scrolling to a recent post that she shoves in front of my face before I have a chance to tell her, no, I don't want to see Annika Greer doing anything on TikTok or anywhere, ever. I'm too late. There she is, Annika, beautiful as ever. The same long red hair and eyebrow-grazing bangs, the same wide blue eyes, holding up the twin to my envelope, waving it at the camera. She performs a little dance with a decorative letter opener that she slides under the envelope's fold and slices up with a decisive thrust as if she's performing a ritual sacrifice. For a moment, I imagine Annika slicing her own hand and blood spurting out. Not so past envy after all, a little voice says inside my head. The TikTok ends before the contents of the envelope are revealed. The caption in cerulean blue reads, hashtag blessed to be offered this opportunity, hashtag grateful to the great goddess, followed by a string of emojis, namaste hands, moons, suns, and a lot of multicolored hearts. It must be an invitation to his island, Eros, Jenner says, clapping her hands. Didn't you go there once, back when you were a writer? Back when I was a writer. I smile up at Jenner, who has an unfamiliar expression on her face. She's been my work-study assistant since last September and has been fairly reliable except for a few bouts of the flu and a weepy period when some boy broke up with her. She's shown a polite interest in the workings of the college museum that I supervise, even though she's a digital media major, and we here at the Museum of Ancient Antiquities are decidedly low-tech. And enough interest in me to learn how I like my coffee, drip, no flavoring, whole real milk, and that, yes, I really do care about spelling and grammar in our outgoing emails. I have never seen her looking at me like this, though. Like, I might actually be someone important. Like, I might actually be someone worthy of envy. The island isn't called Eros, I correct. That's the god of love. Eris is the goddess of discord. She's the one who threw the golden apple into the wedding of Peleus and Thetis. Noticing that Jenner's eyes are glazing over, I resort to a visual aid and point to a poster in the wall behind her. It features the museum's prize object, the 7th century BCE black figure wedding vase. See that scary winged woman holding an apple? That's Eris. She was angry that she wasn't invited to the wedding of Peleus and Thetis, so she tossed a golden apple marked "to the fairest" into the party. Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite fought over it, so they asked Paris to judge who was the fairest. And Aphrodite bribed him by offering him Helen, which is what started the Trojan War. Seeing that I've lost her again, I sigh and add, yes, I went to the residency on Eris, but it was a long time ago. I wrote my first book there, back when I was a writer. Is that why Argos invited me and Annika? Because it's our anniversary? Does that mean he's inviting all the residents who were there that summer? And he's definitely inviting you back to Eros, Jenner enthuses, ignoring my lesson on Greek mythology. I read that he invites artists and writers he thinks have a great work in them. Wasn't Annika Greer there the same year you were? And that classics mystery writer you're so into? Aren't you going to open it? I stare down at the blue eye, picturing Annika's blue eyes, the way they'd widen when she was impressed or moved or surprised. Would she be surprised to learn that I have received an invitation to? Would she be a little bit jealous? Not now. And no, I add, holding up my hand before Jenner can make the request I can see is on the tip of her tongue. I don't want you to make a video of me opening it. Really, it's like your generation doesn't remember what it was like to get mail. Besides, even if it is an invitation, I'd have no reason to go because I am not a writer anymore. Jenner gapes at me. But if Argos Alexander is inviting you to his island, then he must think you still are. Besides, isn't his villa, like, gorgeous? Images of whitewashed walls against blue sky, terraces dripping with bougainvillea and jasmine, silver olive groves shivering in the sea breeze, and aquamarine grottos scroll through my mind like a travel video, like something Annika might post on TikTok. Yes, I tell Jenner, it's the most beautiful place on earth. Now, would you please get me the end of year budget report? I have to have that to the president for today. I spend the rest of the afternoon shuffling around expenses, trying to find ways to keep the Museum of Ancient Antiquities running on a shoestring budget. I send in the report, and half an hour later, the president shows up at my office. Not a good sign, but perhaps not surprising. Donations to the museum are down and operating costs are up. Interest in the classics is declining. 5 years ago, the classics department was folded into Comp Lit. Digital media has been angling for the space the museum occupies on the top floor of Old Main, and the administration has been suggesting we store our collection in a sub-basement of the library. Oh, by the way, this does start in the Hudson Valley. This is a college that I've used in another book, Briarwood. If this is about the budget, I say, reaching for the report, I have some ideas of cuts we could make. I didn't come to talk about the budget, Maya, he says, sitting down in the old leather armchair across from my desk. What did you come to talk about, I ask, shifting in my chair, which lets out an angry squeak. It's as ancient as some of our artifacts, but I haven't dared request a replacement. I hear Argos Alexander is calling his lambs home. To the slaughter, I can't help adding. You didn't end up so badly the last time. Didn't he launch your career? Like Helen's face, Argos Alexander has launched 1,000 careers. I could add that he takes even less responsibility than Helen for the trajectory of those careers once he's cast them adrift on the sea. But don't want to sound as if I'm blaming him for how I foundered on the rocks in the years after my residency, when I know no one's to blame for that other than myself. I'm always reminded of the benefits of a classical education when I'm in your company, Maya. Your father would be proud. My father, a classics professor and former head of this museum, would say that the Helen simile was low-hanging fruit, and surely I could have come up with something more original. So he goes on, compliment delivered. You must have received an invitation. He leans forward and props his elbows on my desk, rumpling the pages of the budget report. I saw your old friend Annika Greer was invited. That too, Philip? I wouldn't have pegged you for an avid TikTok fan. I have a Google News alert set for Argos Alexander and all our most generous donors, he says. And besides, I like that book Annika wrote. I got an invitation, I say abruptly, determined not to be upstaged by Annika in my own office, especially not by Annika's first book, which featured an unlikable character named Freya, who was dominated by her medieval studies professor father, an obvious stand-in for me. Ah, he says, leaning back and steepling his fingers as if I've just exposed my queen in a game of chess. Never let yourself be provoked, my father always said, least of all by vanity. When do you go? I can arrange a travel grant if that's necessary, and I'm sure the museum can spare you. What makes you think I've accepted? Why would I drop everything at his summons? And what exactly would you be dropping? Blood rushes to my face. I'm working on a book, I say, thinking guiltily of the manuscript collecting dust on my desk at home. Working on is perhaps an exaggeration. Write it there, he says. Isn't the island supposed to be the seat of the muses? No, I snap, tired of everybody getting this wrong. That's Mount Parnassus. Eris is the goddess of discord, a mean-spirited bitch who likes to stir up the worst in people. Her island is not a happy place. I picture for a moment that white-walled room with its view of the sea, the olive wood desk scattered with seashells. So why in the world would I go back there? Because, Philip says, uncowed by my mythology lesson and taking a crisp envelope stamped with the Mati from his pocket, Argos Alexander has written to say he's considering making a substantial bequest to the Museum of Ancient Antiquities. He says he looks forward to discussing it with you when you come to the island. Philip knew all along I'd been invited. We have other donors, I say, and there are a few more cuts I could make. He shrugs and gets to his feet. If that's what you prefer, but if you don't have the funds to support the museum by the end of the summer, I'll have to recommend that we consider closing up shop. He stops at the door and looks back over his shoulder. Frankly, Maya, mightn't it be the best outcome for you? When your father got ill and you stepped in to help out here, we were all grateful, but it was only meant to be temporary. I can't help feeling that the museum has gotten in the way of your writing. Maybe a trip to Eris is just what you need. He leaves before I can respond, which is just as well. While it's tempting to go along with the story he's spun. Dutiful daughter puts career on hold to nurse ailing father and carry on his legacy. I know it's a lie. So I'm going to stop there for a moment. And so invitation delivered. Does she take it right away? I like to think of the hero's journey, you know, and the call to adventure and what your character might go through, like not to take that call, not to. So she's going to resist for a little while, but it's going to prove kind of hard for her to do that in the long run. But in the meantime, I'll tell you a little bit more about the. So, is she happy with Annika? I feel like I'm doing. Not exactly. So something happened there 15 years ago when she was there as her first residency on the island. And I've been to a number of writing retreats. Again, my experience of writing retreats has been lovely. Never has there been a murder. I guess. And I say in the acknowledgments here, I mentioned I started this book at one residency in on an island off the coast of Maine, which was not at all really like the Greek island, but I did my best to pretend while I was there that it was a lot warmer. It was beautiful, but just very different from Greece. And I finished the edits for it at an island, not an island, at another retreat in Italy. And in all of those retreats, the people were extremely nice, and I didn't see any backbiting or rampant jealousy. So why have a rivalry at the center of this? I do think there's a vein of jealousy that does run through, and of envy. That I see my writer friend agreeing. I always often think it's kind of the besetting sin of writers. The feeling of that feeling you get when some other writer gets a big award, and you quickly email them and tag them and say, "Oh, it's so great," and you mean it. You do mean it. But there's always kind of measuring yourself up against, and I think even sometimes I see it when we read things that we just think, "Oh, I wish I had written that," And I try to resist that, because the one thing I don't want, other than I don't want to become a bitter, envious person, is I also don't want to ruin my reading. I want to enjoy when I read something good, to just love it and be inspired by it and learn from it. But there is often that also inevitable, one of my students in a writing class I was teaching this summer said, because I give out little excerpts from published work to illustrate issues of craft that I'm teaching. And she said, I got so discouraged after the last one. Dennis Lehane is so good. And I was like, yes, but don't let the green-eyed monster ruin your enjoyment of that. So this was the book where I really thought I wanted to explore that. And also the envy that happens sometimes amongst women, even women who are friends, and to look at that. So I'm just going to read one other short section, and this is, she's gone home, she is still struggling with this decision, is she going to go to the island or not? I mean, we could tell her that there's no book if she doesn't go, but that doesn't always, I can't write that down. So finally, she does, unable to sleep, I give in to the siren call of social media. I fibbed when I told Diane, her agent, I didn't follow it, and go on to Annika's Instagram to see what she's posting about her upcoming trip to the island and who's liked it. And there, like her feed is hot-wired to my brain, are all the images that have been haunting me. She's posted a dozen photographs from that summer. And not just pictures of her, but pictures of me and Ian, too. That's when Jenner said, that mystery writer that you're so into. It wasn't Ian, it was actually Ian's father. I pause on one of Ian, grinning, skin bronze, tousled brown hair, gold in the Mediterranean sun, with Annika and me on either side of him, an arm around each of us. I made the best friends on the island last time, Annika has written in the caption. I can't wait to see who's coming now. If you've gotten an invitation, don't be shy, let me know. She's tagged me and Ian. So, she's still in touch with him. Over the years, I've combed Annika's social media for any sign of him, but he's either been camera shy or they weren't together anymore. Maybe she's trying to find out if he's coming. Maybe she's wondering if I am. Maybe, I think, she's afraid that I will. A spark flares in my chest, like that dopamine rush I felt earlier from being chosen. But this flame burns steadier and fills my heart with a dark craving to see that confident look in Annika's blue eyes waver. To let her know that she's not the only one who's been chosen. I bet it would really drive her crazy to know I've been invited too. I am past envy, I tell myself. I have stepped out of the chase. And why do you still follow Annika? And why is that manuscript still on your desk? I'll unfollow Annika and throw out the manuscript tomorrow, I replied to myself. I've worked hard these last 15 years to put my life back on track, taken over the museum my father ran at the college, risen to rank 4 in the university's staff hierarchy, complete with benefits and a retirement plan. I don't need to go halfway around the world chasing some ridiculous notion of inspiration and creation. I don't need to be a writer. As I'm putting down my phone, I notice I've got a private message on Instagram. When I open it, I see it's from Annika. Hey, I suppose you've heard that I'm going back to the island. I hope it didn't upset you to know I've been invited back. I know that things ended badly between us, but I understand that you weren't really yourself. Maybe none of us were. I just want you to know that I have no hard feelings and that I'd really love to see you again. XOXO Annika. I stare at the text so long the letters swim and dissolve like foam in the surf. I just want you to know that I have no hard feelings, as if I'm the one who had betrayed our friendship. Instead of answering her message, I replied directly to her post on Instagram. I wouldn't miss it for the world. I'll see you there. So now she's going. And clearly not for the best reasons, which I think every murder mystery should start out with somebody doing something not for the best reasons. So let me open up and see if anyone has questions for me. Yes?
Do you think that there's any particular role that your two pseudonyms play as you're looking at your body of work?
Oh, do you mean Juliet Dark and Lee Carroll? Wow, this is a deep burn. I think that's how the kids use it, right? When you,
I wouldn't know.
when you go into somebody's history, most people here don't. Well, some people know it. Yeah, so few people know about my pseudonym Lee Carroll is.
I know that's your partnership
with Lee. We wrote a urban fantasy trilogy, and then Juliet Dark was when I wrote a paranormal trilogy for my publisher at the time, and they thought, well, maybe you should use a pseudonym because this is a little different from your regular books. And we, over lunch, came up with, I had a good friend named Juliet. I didn't think she'd mind. We came up with the name Juliet Dark. So your question was, do I think the
I didn't, like, did you use those pseudonyms to, like, explore a different avenue?
I did. Those were both fantasy. Although I did publish a YA fantasy trilogy under my own name. But that was my little foray out of mystery and into fantasy. After I had published, I think, 7 mysteries, and I needed to write something different at that point. I really did. And I love fantasy. So I thought I would do that. I didn't even think it was that different. I had always written books that had fairy tales in them. And so to me it was like, oh, now the fairies are real. That's to me it seemed like a consistent, but publishing sees, genres are more categorized. I'm looking, I think the fantasy is over. No, they're not. They've moved it. But yeah, so publishing sees things as a little bit more categorized, and so that's, that seemed to be a good idea. But yeah, I did definitely. I don't know if I used the pseudonyms as much as I used I wrote the fantasy books in order to explore a different type of writing than I had been doing.
Are there going to be any more?
Of the fantasy books?
Well, any more use of those two pseudonyms?
Oh, well, but my husband will tell you yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. There's always the possibility of another Lee Carroll.
A quick question. For the Juliet Dark book, what name were they published under in England?
I think under Juliet Dark.
Okay.
Yeah, but they did change the title.
Oh.
Demon Lover became Incubus.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? But our books, yeah, so no plans, but hey, we've got a fan, maybe we will.
More than one fan.
Oh, more than one fan, okay. So thank you, thanks for remembering those, yes.
I have a question that's tangentially related to the new book as well as some of your past books. As I'm sure you know, universities and colleges, particularly liberal arts colleges, have been under a lot of financial stress and enrollment stress lately. And one of the more frequent responses is either the elimination or reduction in certain departments.
Yes, yeah.
Humanities are always at the top of the list. classics in particular.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm wondering what your thoughts are about the importance of the humanities, the importance of classics, in particular a liberal arts education.
I think the humanities are really important, and my my professor friend here will agree, and my people who work at New Paltz. So of course, you can't state enough how important I think they are. And I know I have a friend who teaches anthropology, and his department I know is under assault, and I do think in classics departments have been folded into comp lit. I think at Vassar now, it is different. When I went there, it was a Latin major and a Greek major, and I think that's been folded. At least they still have it. So I think that's,
What do you think they offer students that the sciences, the social sciences do not?
Well, an understanding of the whole history of art and creation, and I think students love those classes. I think they're, when I teach English and creative writing at SUNY New Paltz, and I think when you're teaching a novel, you're teaching really human psychology, and you're giving students a way of making sense of the world, and I think that's what the humanities does. It gives us a way of making sense of people and why we're here. So I think that's important. I'm probably not giving as impassioned, or as, I guess I'm impassioned, but I don't know how else. What do you think is the importance of humanities?
Well, along those same lines, I think all of the different divisions in any different college are really just different perspectives on the same basic questions. And there's a lot to be said for science.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be said for social sciences. But for a long time, I taught a course on the psychology of religion, which is a very unpopular topic because many people in religious studies do not believe they should be amenable to scientific investigation because it's a very different way of thinking, and it's a very different way of approaching a problem. And so when I was on faculty, I was a big advocate of the humanities in those departments, simply because they do offer an alternative way to think about really the questions we're all
Why are we
addressing.
here?
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I think they're absolutely vital, and I love my students at New Paltz. They were reading Jane Eyre, and I think they actually read it. And they were excited about like Frankenstein and Rebecca, and I was like, and I hear so many people saying, say like people don't read anymore, the kids don't read anymore, and there was in a class where, people were actually really excited about what they were reading, and having really exciting conversations about it. So I think. I have no idea what the wealth of what we lose if we don't have that. So yes, it saddens me. That all of learning seems to be under attack, but that's been under attack for a while. And I do know, So I thought that was just something when I, sort of conceived of this, that she is the daughter of a classics professor, and I just, classics is a marginalized. But, they love mythology, and mythology teaches us so much about envy, for one thing. How great is it that there is a goddess of discord, which, by the way, was the title of the book originally. It was called The Goddess of Discord. But how great that there is like this personification of the person who throws the apple into the party, and how many people have you known like that? They usually have a sort of worse name than, I won't repeat, what you call people who stir up trouble. But I think it's just, as a way of understanding ourselves, they're just invaluable. So, yes, humanities. And reading. Other questions? Yeah, Nancy.
I'm excited that you are putting a murder mystery on an island, because that is one of my favorite things that other mystery authors have done. Were you at all, did you feel like, okay, it's my turn to try this?
Of course, and obviously the Agatha Christie and Then There Were None is the...
I like Evil Under the Sun a little
Oh,
better.
and that's a funny island because it's sort of, it has that funny, well, I'm thinking of this is probably horrible of me, but I'm thinking of the David Suchet version of it, not
They made it into a Greek island for that series. No, wait.
No, it's
was
the
the
island
other
off
one.
the coast of
Yeah.
England,
The
actually.
Peter Ustinov movie and Maggie Smith.
Oh, did they
They
make
made it
that?
a Greek island.
Oh, did they? I didn't even know that.
But then David Suchet was in England. But
Yeah.
it's just a really good mystery.
Yeah. Any
Can't wait
island,
to see what you're doing. with
any
it.
locked room, so for the locked room mystery is that golden age mystery trope of a murder occurs and the suspects are limited because we're on an island and you can't get off. And that, of course, is what happens here. And I had actually done it, I had already done it once. I had done it with I'll remember the name of the book I wrote in a second, The Disinvited, The Disinvited Guest. Originally called, I can tell you all the original titles, The Disinvited was its original, where it's on an island off the coast of Maine. So in
Right.
here, you've got, but I was like, I've done it once, I can do it again, right?
Of course.
Especially if I said it in Greece, totally different from the island in Maine. And I did stay at this writer's retreat in Maine. And even there was, I remember one day where it got really windy and we were only on that island, you could see the mainland. You were across a reach, it was a mile really of very cold water. But one day it got really windy and somebody remarked, oh yeah, we can't go across today. And I was like, what? What now? What, you mean there's a point at which, what if the wind keeps blowing? They're like, well, yeah, we couldn't go across because it would be too rough in the little boat we have. And I was like, what? It's a murder mystery waiting to happen. So that sense of being confined, and of course, and in this, they don't have a way off the island, and so they are stuck there when the body is found. Spoiler alert: there's going to be a body found, and then they have to, who amongst us is the murderer, and it has to be somebody amongst us. So I love and I'm someone who really likes. I like tropes. I like, and I think. Exploring them and having fun with them. The fact that it is a mystery trope that we all know, being set on an island, we're all going to think about the same Agatha Christie book, but that gives you an opportunity to do something a little different with it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anyone, and Then There Were None is really clever, I think, and a good one. So I encourage you to read all those. So, yeah, so I had great fun with that. Yeah.
So, what authors would you say influenced you in the beginning of your writing career?
Well, in the beginning, which wasn't really, my career took a little longer, but really Gothic novels, most of all. And Jane Eyre is the one that really, I read it when I was 13, and that was it. I just loved that. That plus then I watched all the Dark Shadows. So it's like Gothic was, between those two.
Yeah. So did you ever read like Mary Stewart? Dorothy
Oh, yeah.
King,
Oh, I love Mary
Phyllis
Stewart.
Whitney.
Yeah, I didn't read
yeah.
a lot of Phyllis Whitney, although I did later. I sort of went from, I read all the Dark Shadows
Yeah.
books, and early, like 5th grade. And I remember my 5th grade teacher saying, Carol, had it, my mother, and it said, Carol's not reading up to her grade level because she's reading these trashy Dark Shadows books. She said something like that, and I was like, I don't care, I'm Barnabas. So I read those, and then but then at 13, I just sat down and read Jane Eyre, and didn't even think of it as, it wasn't for a class or anything, I just picked it up and read it. And it's a great book to, I was thinking about this just recently, that it's, it starts when she's a child, so it really is a coming of age book. It's not that, it makes sense to read it at 13. But I loved all the Gothic stuff. And that was much more influential to me. Mysteries, which my mother read a lot of mysteries, and there were tons of Agatha Christie books in the house, and I may have read one or two, but I was not an early I was not an early fan of mystery books per se. But the Gothic novels had such a mystery, they all have mysteries to them. Plus they have that, the atmosphere and the romance. And Mary Stewart I loved. I read her first, I read the Arthurian ones.
Yeah.
Which I read when I was pretty young. It was a number of years later that I read her romantic suspense. And I realized, she really, which are like Moon Spinners, which is set in Greece, which I reread it when I started this, and then I watched the Haley Mills movie.
Oh, it's horrible.
It's horrible. It is.
There was no way, shape, or form it even resembled the book.
It does not. And Haley Mills is way too old. I mean, is she too young or too old? I don't know. It's pretty awful.
Yeah,
but
it was horrible.
I watched it. But I love Mary Stewart as well. So for a long time, that was really the Gothic and the romantic suspense. When I was in my 20s, I read Mary Higgins Clark. And she too, I think, falls into that romantic suspense. And she's not generally thought of as Gothic, but the Mary Higgins Clark book that I think it's her second or third novel, A Cry in the Night, is her most Gothic one, and that was my favorite. And I read that one in my 20s when I was working in New York, and then I read a lot of them, And she too, I think, that sort of formula of, young woman in peril, with a little romance on the side. But her, her whole thing though was that they were always women with a job, and they always got themselves out of that peril. So, she, I think she was, not groundbreaking exactly, but, she had a strong...
Yeah, ahead of her time.
A little bit, yeah. So those are and since then, now I've, really read a lot more Agatha Christie and read a lot in the mystery genre. Once I realized what I was writing was being shelved as mystery, it behooved me to spend some more time digging into it. And I did that more. And my husband and I watched the David Suchet Poirot's endlessly. We're like on our third time. And we still sit there and go like, was it her killed? Trying to remember who did it. Any other questions? Yeah.
I mean, this is just a curiosity question.
Mm-hmm.
When you submit a manuscript, does it get sent to other writers in the genre or other writers in the topic, or does it always stay in-house?
Do you mean, does it get like a sensitivity read or a blur, or do we look for blurbs?
My wife said it more of a peer review. So I'm just thinking what the parallels in academics would be to that.
Yeah. Not peer reviewed at all. So no, it goes, when I finish something, often my husband will read it, and then the next person I send it to is my agent. And then when she okays it, we send it to my editor, and other people in the publishing house read it. So quite a number of them my editor will then get reads, but it's not really a peer review, but then it goes through many editing stages and copy editing stages. So certainly there are a lot of eyes on it trying to make sure that it, it all hangs together. But it's not, and I guess that's kind of like having a peer review. It's just that, and then you do send them out to, and I guess the peer review I get is that I often share it with writer friends and friends in general, just to get, because it can take, like 5 people can read it, and there can be some dumb mistake that you haven't noticed, and then hopefully noticed before it ends up being published. But you do need a lot of eyes on it. So. And I try to, every time it comes back to me, which it comes back to me a lot, my editor will send it back, and then, usually a couple times, and then the copy editor will, and then when it's set in page proofs, I'll see it again. And I try to read it all through every time. Every time I have an opportunity to lay eyes on it, so that I can really think about, make sure that it's all hanging together. because there are a lot of moving parts in a mystery. So you don't want to be surprised or have some, reviewer point out something.
So what was the worst thing that anyone ever tried to get you to do to change your book?
Oh, well, it's always the title. And they do it all the time, every time.
Really?
Because, and this is funny because people often will say like, oh, what's it like being edited? Is it terrible? And it's like, not really. It's like really, you're really glad to have all these people, professional people reading your work and help, working with you on it. And so I've actually never had in the editing process itself anyone, I take that back. When I was Juliet Dark, when I handed in, like even after they had gone through the editing, I did get a note saying, could you make it sexier? And I was like, whoa. and I think I did, but so that was the only, but that wasn't terrible. At least I didn't think so. So it's never been, I've never gotten, the editing process is generally the editor working with you to, point out what, is maybe not working to its best. And I just, on my most recent book, that I just finished the editing process, there wasn't a lot on it, but my editor mentioned one thing about it's about a husband and wife team of writers. We haven't moved away from the writers. And there was one thing in their relationship that I had kind of glossed over. And she said, I think this is important. And my first response was, I don't know about that. But then I would like in the middle of the night, I woke up and I was like, of course it is. And it changed. I did a lot of work because of that note. So most often it's, a positive experience. And you want to be edited. You really do. I see some books, by really famous writers who maybe have gotten to the point where they don't have to be edited or at least sort of opt out of it, and you go like, this could have really stood some more editing, especially really long books. I have noticed that there's a tendency to want books to be a little shorter. I suddenly realized that my contract, it used to say 100,000 words, now it says 80,000.
Really?
And I did notice once in an editing process, it seemed like my editor kept trying to cut things, and I was like, why? She said, well, we want it to be under. And once she told me that, I said, I can get rid of other stuff. I want to keep this stuff.
Right.
So I still was able to negotiate. But I think it's an attention span thing, and probably price of paper. So I think there are those trends.
Wow.
But titles, oh my God, because the marketing team, it's not even a discussion with my editor. The marketing team's like, nope, we don't want that. We want this.
Because they look at trends to see
Yes.
what's selling.
It's like selling. And I realized fairly early on that it's like for them, it's like selling just a product. And it's like naming a candy bar. So the people who are doing it often haven't read the book, which can be infuriating. But that's I always think, well, that's the worst. The book itself is, but it's not pleasant. That is probably my biggest beef with the industry. Yes.
I probably shouldn't ask this in a bookstore, but what do you think of audiobooks?
Oh, I don't think. I mean, are you okay with audiobooks? Do you have a way of buying audiobooks through Oblong?
So the best way to get audiobooks is through Libro FM. We don't stock them in regularly. If you want a physical copy, the Star Library has an excellent series. That's where I get all of my audiobooks from.
Yeah.
You just want to download. Libro FM is the best way to do it.
Libro?
Libro FM.
Libro
And
FM.
You can contact it through your favorite bookstore.
There we
Audible is,
go.
of course, an Amazon company. So you can
Yeah, and I never use that. No, that's a good thing to know. So, I mean, I don't listening to audiobooks has never been, that I'm not that into it because I always think, when would I do it? Because I'm not somebody who, except when I'm in a car is when I would do it. And I have done it sometimes when I usually buy the book and then, get the Audible. And that's because I almost never do just listen to a book. I'll very often, if I'm reading a book and then I'm going on a long car trip, I might also get the audio version. so that I can listen to it. And when I was teaching my Gothic novel class this past semester, I was like, oh, so Jane Eyre, love it, love it, love it. I've read it 8 times. Did I want to read it again? So cover your ears. There is a really good Audible version of it, which has the actress Tandaway Newton doing the, and maybe that's available. Would it be, or would it just be, never mind. All the is like, we're never having her back again. But I did listen to that Audible version, it was Audible, I'm sorry, version of it, because Tandaway Newton is an amazing actress, and it was great to like hear Jane Eyre, my favorite novel in the world. It was like, you know, I was like weeping, you know, it was like a totally new experience. And then I listened to it back and forth on my way to, you know, driving to New Paltz to teach it. And so that was, but it's not my, I mean, you know, I like the physical book. I don't read on e-readers either. And I do take things from the library as well as obviously buying here at Oblong. So buy here at Oblong. And use Libro?
Yep,
Libro. Is it on your website? Is there a link?
There's links on our website.
Okay, let's do that. We want to listen to. How many people listen to audiobooks? Okay, Libro. Let's do that.
Plus Libby, the library
And Libby.
service has audiobooks.
Right. Yeah. And I see, you know, as well as supporting your local bookstore, supporting your library is important too, because I think a lot of their funding comes through the numbers that go through the library. So that's important as well. So, I think we're kind of winding up. Any other questions? Yeah.
You said you read more mysteries now that are contemporary. Do you have favorites?
I do. So I love Tana French, you know, her Irish books. Yeah, you too. She's fantastic. I love Nancy Billow's historical mysteries. So, you know, and our friend Mariah Frederick's historic mysteries I like very much as well. And let me just, I always blank when even though I read them constantly. Who else do I really like? I mentioned Dennis Lehane before. I was just rereading a book by Attica Locke that I thought was great. That I was teaching a mystery class, so I was looking for a lot of contemporary mystery and using examples from that. And I don't know why I always blank when I should look at my Goodreads to see. Oh, and I like the Thursday Murder Club. I started reading those. We've got fans here. And the newest Anthony Horowitz, Marble Hall Murders, I thought was really great.
You've turned me onto a couple of authors like Peter Swanson.
Peter Swanson, yeah, he's a Boston author who has really clever, twisty books. I like him a lot too. Thank you for being my memory.
Well, yeah, I mean, she told me, oh, you should try this Peter Swanson book. And then like a week later, very little sleep, I'm just binging through all of them.
I think I read all of them in like a big, you know, my publisher.
Stop.
Yeah, he's very good. So yeah, I read more than I'm letting on by my faulty memory right now. And lately I've been reading, so here's, you know, I think a trend lately has been books about books and books about writers, which is not the reason I wrote this, but I find myself kind of in that a little bit. So there are these like the Magpie Murders books, which have a book within a book, and I'm trying to think of that. I just read something called Welcome to Murder Week. You know, books that are set around writing communities, and I'm finding that kind of great fun because that's what I do. So I think we always like to read in, you know, the field that we're in. I like bookish books. I like books that are, you know, either set at universities or, you know, boarding schools. So another, the God of the Woods by Liz Moore I really liked, which is set at a girls' camp in the Adirondacks. And then I have some questions for you by Rebecca McKay, was set at a boarding school. So I really like that. So there are some of them.
I think we got time for one more question.
One more question. It's you.
So I know you're a professor and you're writing pretty much a book a year.
About what?
A book a year.
Oh,
So
yeah.
How long does it take you to get it to the point of sending it off for the editing?
You know, I just counted that the other day, like, or yesterday, or maybe it was even today. I was thinking about that. How long does it take? It takes about 9 to 10 months. I usually start in, like, by August of each year. I'd like to have it launched before I start teaching, so I know what the book is, and I've been handing in books in May. And then it goes through an editing process, and that's when, so over the summer, it'll go through that, I'll hand it in May, it'll come back to me at various points, but I'll be thinking about what the next book is. Sometimes I know, sometimes I think I know, and I don't. So I'm just actually, so I handed that in May. I have a short period where I tell myself it's okay not to be writing a book, but I hate it. I honestly hate that I call it the interlibrum, because I was a Latin major. And I'm not happy. I'm not, I can't really, and it's not that I don't have other work to do or a life or friends who might want to have lunch. But I still am like, if I don't have a book in my head that I'm working on, I'm not really happy. That sounds terrible, doesn't it? But that's so I have a friend who's not here tonight, Elisa. She said to me one day, it's like you've taken the neuroses that make the rest of us stop writing and weaponize them to keep writing. And I'm like, yes. What else are you supposed to do with your neuroses? I turn them into books. But that's about it. I think about 10 months with probably another 2 months of editing in there. So that's it. So I'll have another one for you next year, right about this time. And I hope you all come again.
This one, I was trying to count them.
What
number is this one? I was trying to count them.
I think it's 27. I think it's 27. I could be wrong. Including all the Lee Carroll, Julia Darkwich. Why wouldn't I include them?
Read them all.
Is there
Nina?
an island map?
Is there, not on, no, not on this one. There isn't. There should be. You're right. I fell down on my there's going to be a map in the next book. I've got my daughter to do a map for the Disinvited, and somehow we didn't get around to trying to get her to do it for this one. So I should have. Maybe I'll have her do it as a further addition. It's a good thought. Thank you so much.